Okay, I think we're going to start. So, welcome to our Sefaria Stacks webinar. I'm Rachel Buckman. I'm Sefaria's Education Associate, and with me today is Hannah Goldberger, our Senior Development Associate. The way we're going to run today's webinar is that I'm going to be explaining things, showing things, and if you have questions along the way, I'd like it if you would write them into the chat, and we're going to take breaks along the way, and then Hannah will ask the questions. She kind of knows what the plan is here, so if it's something that's going to be explained as we go along, then she'll hold off on the question, but you can just keep your questions going in the chat, and I'm going to be sharing my screen and showing you the wonders of Sefaria and our library. And so I'm so happy that you joined us today, whether it's morning or evening for you. So as you all know, we're the people of the book, and for thousands of years, our culture, our traditions, and our values have been transmitted through our texts. From an oral tradition to handwritten scrolls, to a vast corpus of printed books, each new medium democratized knowledge and brought more people into the great Jewish conversation. We are the generation charged with shepherding our texts from print to digital in a way that can expand their reach and impact in new and unprecedented ways. And Sefaria is doing this in a big way. The Sefaria library currently consists of over 4,500 index records. Index records is the term I'm using, not books, because this is each tag in our library. So sometimes, so for instance, like the Torah would be 5 different index. I'm gonna just let a couple more people in, sorry. Are about 5 index records, whereas we have other things that are several volumes, but they count as one in our library. But anyway, you count it, over 4,500, and they are linked together with almost 2.5 million intertextual links, which I'm going to explain in a little bit what that is and what that does for you as the Sefaria user. We called today's webinar Sefaria Stacks because we were thinking back to the days of our university libraries where we had to walk around in the stacks to find books. And along the way, we sometimes made wonderful discoveries. Today with Sefaria, we can do it even better with a click of a mouse, which lets us follow along and participate in the conversations that have been going on for thousands of years. I'm sorry, there are still a few people that I'm letting in. So we're going to learn today on this webinar how to navigate all of what we have at Sefaria. So it's going to be your introduction to Sefaria Stacks and give you the tools to wander in our library and make wonderful discoveries. You're going to learn how the texts are interconnected in the Sefaria library, how to navigate the library, how to learn about the works that you find, because hopefully today you're going to see some books that maybe you aren't familiar with. So then how are you going to learn about what they are? And you're going to meet some of our lesser known texts. I'm going to be working on the website, and most of what I'm doing can also be done on the app, although it might look a little bit different. When there's a major difference between the app and the website, I will point it out. I also want to mention that I'm on the English website, which is www.sefaria.org. We also have a Hebrew website, which is www.sefaria.org.il. So when I talk about things being on the left or being on the right, if you're on the Hebrew website, everything is just flipped. So let's get started, and I'm going to go to Sefaria's website. I'm going to start on the library page. This is an important page on our site and where you can do some of the navigating. But I want to start with, let's say you're looking for a text and you know exactly what you're looking for. So what's the easiest way to find the text? So every page of Sefaria has a search bar in the top left, or as I said, on the Hebrew, on the top right. It has a magnifying glass. It says search, and if I click on it, then you'll see to the right of it, you'll see an icon that is that is a keyboard, and this is a Hebrew keyboard. And if I click on it, then I have a virtual Hebrew keyboard, because our search bar, you can search in Hebrew, you can search in English, you can search in transliteration, whatever you would like. If you can type on your computer, you can just type in Hebrew. If you can type Hebrew on your computer, you can just type in Hebrew. But if you don't have Hebrew typing and you would like to type, then you can use the icon. And again, this is on every single page in Sefaria. So let's start. Let's say I'd like to look up Pirkei Avot, the ethics of our fathers. And I could even be pretending that I don't even know where it is. And I can just start typing. And you'll see that I get a drop-down menu. And in front of the word, so it's Pirkei Avot. So I didn't even have to worry about spelling it right. If I spelled it wrong, it probably still would have come up. If there's a book in front of it, an icon of a book, that means I'm going to go to that book. If there is a hashtag in front of it, that's a topics page, which I'll be talking about later. And you can see all kinds of suggestions. I can pick the one that I was interested in. So I'm going to click on Pirkei Avot, and it takes me right to the table of contents of Pirkei Avot, and I can click on the first chapter. In the middle here, you see there's 6 chapters of Pirkei Avot. I can click on the first one, and I'm right there in the text. Every single text on Sefaria works in the same way. On the top, you'll see the A Aleph, the top, and this is the header. Across here, there's the X, there's the name of the book, there's a star, and there's an A Aleph, and this is all in the header. And if I click on the A Aleph, I now can choose the language that I would like it displayed in, if I'd like it all Hebrew, all English, or bilingual. If I'm in bilingual, as I am now, how I want it laid out. Do I want the Hebrew on the top and the English on the bottom? Do I want them next to each other? Do I want it with the vowels, without the vowels? And I also can change the size. So you can change the size of your computer screen, or you can also change it here. I'll show you what a bilingual layout side by side looks like. A lot of people like it that way. It can also be the other way, with the English on the left, the Hebrew on the right. I'm going to leave mine stacked with the Hebrew on the top, the English on the bottom. You can make this decision for every book that you have. Now, I have to note that this, I pick the English, it's not translating it for me. It's just if we have an English version. So if there's a text and it comes up in Hebrew, and even though I'm clicking A, and there's no English, that means that we don't have an English translation on the site. So basically, this is how we open up any text that you know what it is. You're going to type it in the search bar in the top left and go right straight to the text. Let me show you the beauty of digitized text. I'm going to click on the text itself, and now I've opened the resource panel on the side. On your app, that's on the bottom. And here we have every text that is connected to this text, the main one that I chose. So this is the first Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. And as you can see, we have commentaries, lots of them. We have a connection to Tanakh. We have connections to Talmud, Midrash, Halakha, all of our different topics, all of our different categories are connected to them. And I'm going to show you what that means. And some of you I know have done other webinars with us, and you've maybe seen this, so excuse me for the repetition. We are going to get to things that I haven't shown you yet. So I'm going to click on commentary, and now I'm going to see all of the commentary that we have on this particular piece of Mishnah. And it's all listed here. In the parentheses next to each one, it's the number. So Bartanura is the commentator, the first one here. And there's an 8 in parentheses, and that means that he has 8 comments to say on this one piece of text. The next one only has 1, and you can see all the way through. If it's in black and it has a number in the parentheses, that means that commentator had something to say about it. If I go down lower, you'll notice Rashi is in gray. For some people, this might be a little bit hard to see, especially if you're looking on my screen now. But Rashi is in gray and no numbers in parentheses, because Rashi actually, surprisingly, had no comment on this Mishnah. So we want you to know that we do have Rashi on this. We have Rashi's commentary, but he had nothing to say here. So you wouldn't be wondering, oh, is it just something that is not in the library? So if I go back up to the top, you'll also notice that sometimes it has EN next to it. That means we have an English translation. This is also a feature that's only on the website and not on the app. This is really nice if you're only interested in the text that has an English translation, then you don't have to go clicking through and wondering, and opening and saying, oh, nothing for me, and closing it again. So this just helps you to get to what you want in the easiest way. So I'm going to click down here on Rambam, on Maimonides. He has 3 comments on this, and it opens up next to it. It opens, this time mine, it opened in English. If I click on the Aleph, it will do it in Hebrew. But you notice that there's a difference between this text on the right and the text on the left. On the left, we had an A Aleph. We had more choices. And here we just have English or Hebrew. And that's because we're not in the full version of the text. But I can make it the full version by clicking right on it. And now I've opened it in full. And now you can see that they're pretty much the same. I can scroll them each separately. And I can see it now in context of the whole work. I also then can say, oh, I wonder if anything is connected now to this text. So I'm going to look at the 3rd comment that Rambam has, and I'm going to click on it. And now I have the connections of the Rambam. And you can see in the text that he mentions Leviticus. And I would imagine if I click on Tanakh, there it is. There's my Leviticus text. So while I'm reading it, he only mentions a few words of it, but I would like to maybe see the whole verse. Maybe I want to see the whole chapter. I can open it, and there it is in small, and here it is in whole. And I can keep doing this and keep going as long as my screen allows me. If you're in a classroom and have a smartboard, you can keep going for a long time. If you're on the app, you can only open one at a time. And obviously that is a function of the size of your screen. So, so this is how you can find other texts as well, because perhaps I click on here and then I find something in the Talmud that I had known before, or it could even be a text that I don't know. So if I were thinking back of the library that I'm walking around with, and I wouldn't necessarily know where's the book, how do I pull it off the shelf, where do I find it? Here, Sefaria does it all for you with a click of a button, which makes it just so much more convenient and makes it, you're able to find things that maybe you couldn't have found before. So I want to go back and show you that it's not just the connections, it's not just the comments on this, it's not just where things are mentioned. If I scroll down further in the resource bar on the right, I will see sheets with the number 148, so there's a lot of them. Sefaria users who have an account, which having an account is a wonderful thing. It's free. It takes about a minute to create an account. You just enter an email address and a password, and then you're allowed to use all of the features of Sefaria, and one of them is to create source sheets. We have a separate webinar on source sheets. If you would like, we'll be offering more of them in the future. We also have recorded old ones, and those ones you can find on our YouTube channel, and you could watch one of those. So I'm not going to be talking today about how to make a sheet, but how to find a sheet. And so if I click here on sheets, now I see all of the public source sheets. So when people make sheets, they can choose to list them so that they're searchable and available for the entire Sefaria community, or they can keep them private and not listed. But all of the public ones would be listed here. And so they become part of the Sefaria library. And while you're studying here, you can also see what did people have to say about it. And I can click and I can open, let's say I'll open this one. I open the sheet and now it's side by side. It shows me, it opens right where the connection is, but then I can scroll up and I can see what did he do with this piece of text that I'm studying. So that becomes part of the Sefaria library. We have another great resource that's part of the Sefaria library. And I'm again opening the sidebar, the resource bar, and scrolling down, and it says web pages. and there's 88 of those. And I'm very excited to show you what those are. So we have a linker, it's a piece of code that somebody who would have a website, somebody like, let's say, Rabbi Sachs, or In Motion, or My Jewish Learning, or any of these. So any of those people would have a website. They put this piece of code in, and it will link anytime they mention this text. So 88 web pages mention this text. So let's see what they are. I click on them. Then we have Rabbi Sachs. He has 5 web like blog posts that mention this text. Torah in Motion, which is a great website from Toronto, the Virtual Beit Midrash. I'm going to click on Rabbi Sachs to show you how that works. And here he has 5 different Divrei Torah. I'm going to just click on one of them, and it takes me into his website. And now this is part of our library, and I can see, I'll scroll down, and I'm going to see where did he use this text. I'm looking for Pirkei Avot. You can see that he has this linker every place where he puts in a reference. If I click on it, there it is in Sefaria. So he wants people who are reading his Divrei Torah to be able to see a full text. And here it is down here in the middle, Avot 1, that's our text. So now I've looked at everything in our Sefaria library that is connected to that text. I have looked at sheets that users have made. I've looked at websites, and all of this was just from clicking around and seeing other things. This all becomes part of the Sefaria library, and you're easily able to find them all. So I did mention that you might find a book that you're not as familiar with. So let's go to a different text just to just shake things up a little bit. Let's go to something maybe in Tanakh. I'm going to open it from here. I'm going to show you this a little bit later. I'm going to put it in bilingual, and I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to look on the side, and let's say I'm going to open up a midrash, and I'm going to open up Bamidbar Rabbah is connected to it. And now I have it on the side, and in a second I'm going to make it a full text. I'm going to click on it here. And so now I have Bamidbar Rabbah next to me, and I'm thinking, but I don't know so much about Bamidbar Rabbah. I'd like to find out more about it. I can click on the name of the text in the header, and this opens the table of contents. Every work in our library works this way. So it tells me the category, it tells me about it. If it had an author, this one actually doesn't. I'll show you later one that does. It would show me who the author is. It would tell me something about it. I can navigate it very easily here because it goes from chapter to chapter. It tells me the versions that we have on Sefaria. Sometimes we have more than one. It tells me where the Hebrew comes from. And it tells me where the English came from. And it also tells me about the license that it has. And that's important if you wanted to use it for something else. So part of this is a Sefaria community translation that's put together by Sefaria users. Most of our texts are not like that. Most of them are a published author, or some of this, Rabbi Nataf does a lot of translating for us. If you look, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. If you look under the Sefaria community translation, it has the letter CCO. This is the Creative Commons license. If I click on it, it will tell me how I can use this. Sometimes people write us and they say, I'm using this for something I'm writing. How do I credit it? This will tell me exactly what I have to do. So this happens to be something that's open. Anybody can use it. But there are several different licenses, and so you can always find information about that. The other thing, I'm going to make this smaller again so that we can see the full screen on the bottom. Also, this is where you download a text. If somebody would like to download it, you click here, you pick your text that you would like to download, and then your file format, and you can download a text. I just threw a whole bunch of information out there. So I'm gonna take a break and ask Hannah if there have been any questions, and I'll take some of those right now.
Hi. Great. Okay, there have been a few questions, a few about translations, and like, I'll read the questions. So first one is from Herb saying, are there any English texts without the equivalent Hebrew in the collection? So, we have a lot of Hebrew without English translation. Does that go
There is. There are. It's not so many. I'm going to show you later on. I'm going to show you a couple texts. Not so many, but mostly because most of the traditional texts are in Hebrew, and so we have translations, but you would find it more also in the source sheets, because when people write sheets, often the text might be in Hebrew, but the writing that the person, if they write and explain, that would be, we have more English sheets than we have of Hebrew sheets. So, yeah.
Great. And then Gary asked also about translations. Does Sefaria always indicate the sources for English translations? How do we choose them? And how do we choose, which type of translation we require?
Excellent. Okay, so I'm glad that you asked that. Since we're in Exodus here, we happen to have several translations of the Tanakh, and especially of the Torah. So, first of all, I can find it from the table of contents. So I'm going to open the table of contents and scroll down, and there's versions, and you can see that it's kind of light here, but it says 12 English and 5 Hebrew. So we actually have different Hebrew texts, because even the text with vowels, without vowels, with trope, those are each a separate text. And so you can make that choice. We have a Yiddish Tanakh translation that's in the Hebrew. So you would have Yiddish English. You wouldn't have, or just Yiddish by itself. You can't have Yiddish and English, because, and also Persian, same thing. It has to do with the right and left. But this is very new. We have a Persian translation. And in English, we actually don't have just English. We have other languages. But our default is the Tanakh JPS 1985, but we also have the 1917. We have the Rashi Chumash. We have the Koran Jerusalem Bible. Here we have a French, and it keeps going. So this is one way you could choose it that way, but I'm going to show you the easiest way to choose which text you would like to see. So as I said, it defaults to the JPS 1985. That's what I have it on. In the resource bar on the side, if I scroll down, it says translations. And if you're on your app, it says versions. So translations, you click on it, and now it tells you what your current translation is. So that's really important, so you know what you're seeing. And then you can, if I click now this one, now I get that translation. And truthfully, sometimes, I think it's great to have different translations, because if I'm using something, or even just for myself, I'm interested, every translation is a commentary. I'm interested in, how did they translate it? How did another translate it? So you can choose the translation that you like. Also, you can notice underneath, it has the license. This is important if you are doing something with it. I'm going to just click on this one, because this is a better example to show you. I'm going to click on it because it's going to open the Creative Commons website. And now it tells me that this particular translation, that I forgot which one it was, but the one that I had clicked on, it has a CC BY NC 4.0. It tells you you're free to share and adapt under the following terms. You have to give attribution, and it's for non-commercial. Most of our texts are, this is pretty much the most restrictive that we have. We really like open source. So most of our texts, many of our texts are, do not have the non-commercial part, but that's where you would check it. So that's how you would change your translation, your version of, yeah. So that's a great question. Thank you. Hannah, is it okay if I go on a little bit?
There are a few more questions, if that's all right. Joseph asked about, I think he's asking about how the web version compares to the app, and said it seems that the web has like more connections and connectivity.
Well, the connectivity is the same, but there are limitations due to the size of the screen, so you're not going to be able to put as many texts next to each other on the website, on the app. So that is a difference. And some of the indicators, like the English indicator, things like that, that we don't have, but all those connections, the exact same texts and the exact same connections are, it's the same database. So the app and the website.
Wonderful. And then one final question.
Yes.
Could you clarify a little bit if you were talking about downloading the library or downloading resources and how that happens? Yeah.
Okay, so truthfully, Sefaria really is mostly and meant to be an online experience. Once you commit it to paper, then you can't do all of these things of all the connections and that. But there are people who want to download something. And this is also different than when we're talking about the app. So I'll talk about that in a second. But as I said, in the table of contents down here, you can download text. And if you wanted to have a whole book and you wanted to have it printed, you'd have to play around with a little bit of how it's going to look. And if you actually have more questions about that, you can write to us. And actually, I'm so glad you asked that too, because I forgot to mention, I usually like to mention in the beginning that there's no way you're going to remember all of this. We understand that. We're throwing a lot of things at you. And I want you to know where help is for you as you are as you're learning Sefaria. So on your source sheet that we gave you, and we will send this out. It'll probably be next week. We will send this recording, and we will send the source sheet to you. As again, I think it'll be next week, so that you can refer back to it. But on the source sheet, if you look down, we have some ways that you can get some help. We have a new group of sheets that are Sefaria FAQs. You can click here, you'll go right to it. And that might have answers to some of your questions, like how to download, all these things. It has screenshots and explanations. And also, you are welcome to write to us at hello@sefaria.org. We get back to you within usually 24 hours. If we have to find out, if I have to ask one of our engineers or somebody, if you ask me a really hard question, it'll take maybe a little bit longer, but we'll get the answer for you, and we're happy to help you along the way. And I certainly know that it does take a certain amount, any new thing that you learn takes a certain amount of playing with it before you feel comfortable. So please feel free to ask questions and get help along the way. So we were talking before about what happens when you know exactly what text you want. We knew we wanted Pirkei Avot, and that was the fastest way in. But what about if you're exploring? So I'm going to click on the 3 horizontal bars, which are called the hamburger, and that's on the top of every single Sefaria page. I'm going to click on the hamburger, and it's going to take me to the library page. The library page, the main part here, we have our categories. This is again with the library image. These are our categories where things are filed under. And so you could click through, and you saw me do that a little bit. I did do it this way. I clicked on a topic and went right, a category, and went right in there. These topics, the categories that we have here, you know, there are people who would categorize a little bit differently, and maybe we will too at some time. Some of this gets a little bit arbitrary, like we call Tanakh, it could be Bible, it could be, you know, many things. It's divided into the Torah, the prophets, and the writings, Tanakh, the way it's traditionally divided. And then below it, we have Targum, which is the translation, the Aramaic translations, and we have commentaries. You'll notice that some of the texts are written in black and some are in gray. Black indicates that we have a full English translation. Gray indicates that we do not have a full English translation. But like, for instance, some of them are partially translated. So I'm going to show you that a little bit as well. Here are commentators that we have full translations for the whole Tanakh. And we can scroll through them in this way. I want to show you a different category. So for instance, the Talmud category. So we have two Talmuds. We have the Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud. That's what it opens to first. And the Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem Talmud. And if I click on there, now I'm in the Jerusalem Talmud. Right now, it's all in gray. We do not have it translated. We also do not have it divided in the way that most people use it, but we are working very hard on an upgrade of our Yerushalmi. And when we have that, we will be announcing it to everybody. And that will really make it wonderful to have also a full Talmud Yerushalmi. But here is the Talmud Bavli, which is our William Davidson Talmud, which is the Steinsaltz Talmud, the English. There are choices of different versions, and that's all there. Here we have 3 guides for Talmud learning. That's helpful, and we have commentary. And so if a person wanted to, they could be navigating through the site from here and just sort of seeing what we have. In liturgy, I'm going to show you a little bit there. We have 3 Sidurim. We have Ashkenaz, Edot Mizrach, and Sfard. They are not fully translated, but a lot is translated. We have Haggadot, and we have commentaries on Haggadot. We have High Holiday Machzors. We have Piyutim. We have also quick ways to be getting to certain things like Yisker, which could be in something else, but here's a quick access for it. We have keynotes for Tisha B'Av. We have all kinds of liturgy. We also have in Halakha, in Jewish law, we have the Mishnah Torah. Here's the example I wanted to show you where it's in gray, so you might think that there isn't any English, but I don't want you to think that, because if I click on it, I'll see that all of these that are in black, we have full English translations for. But if I scroll down further, now I have some that do not have a full English, but keep going, because here, this is a popular one. A lot of schools use it and people study it a lot. So that one we actually do have in English. The way English gets added is several different ways. One is that if someone wants to take on a project and translate something themselves, they can add it as a Sefaria community translation if they are logged into their account. But most of ours are professional translations. So again, you can always look and see here, it tells you who this is translated by. And I could click on it. It tells me that it comes from actually the National Library. It was digitized by us. And we don't know what the license is. Sometimes we have that as well. So you always can tell, and that's a really important thing in any library, that you have transparency, that you know where things are, and then you get to make the choices of what you want to use. So another way of exploring is, this is picture your walk through the library, kind of looking at the shelves. Here you have all your shelves, and you can look around, and believe me, you can spend a lot of time doing that. Another new way of finding things is our topics page. And here I'm going to use the search bar again. I'm going to put in as an example the 17th of Tammuz, because we have that day coming up soon. And so again, there's a drop-down menu, and here you see we have the hashtag. The hashtag means this is a topics page. A book means it's a book, and later on I'm going to show you a quill means that it's an author, and we'll look at that later. So I'm going to click on this topics page, and here, this is brand new, and it assembles all types of sources and source sheets that relate to this topic. So these are the main, most common sources, classical sources that deal with the 17th of Tammuz, which is the fast day, begins the 3 weeks before Tisha B'Av. And here's the text, and any of these, I could click on it, and then I go full into the library with what we were seeing before. Here's also from the Talmud. You'll see that because I'm on the English website, it is going to prioritize things that we have a translation to. So here we have at the bottom, we have things that we do not have a translation. If I were on the Hebrew website, the order might be different, because it's not going to prioritize that way. It's going to prioritize by the most common ones. I can filter them over on the right. There's a tab filter. They default by relevance. I could change it to chronological order, which would then take away the preference for the English. It would put it with, let's say you have a text that maybe there's a Torah text, and then there's a Mishnah text, and then there's a Talmud text, and then there's a Jewish legal code. It would put it in chronological order. While I'm reading this, I might say, you know, I don't have time to look at this text right now, but I want to remember it for later. I can, if I'm logged in, I can click the star. It shows me that I'm saving this piece. I'm going to click on it. Now I've saved it. And now I want to show you where you would find it. So I'm going to go back, click on the hamburger. On the library page on the top, there's saved texts. So I click on the saved text, and there is the first one. This is the text that I was just looking at. So if I see something, but it's not time for it, I can put it aside and I'll have it later in my saved text. I'm going to go back to that topics page, and I want to show you what else we have there. So this is a great way of discovery, because any of these that I open up, then of course, you know, because we saw it before, I can, from there, I can discover and discover and delve deeper and deeper. And you really can just really be spending all of your time doing this. If I click on sheets, this is going to show me the public source sheets that people tagged for the 17th of Tammuz. So for instance here, I might be interested, this might interest me. What is the 17th of Tammuz about? This happens to be someone who does wonderful sheets, and because I read a lot of sheets, I know that. So I might look at that and say, I would love to see what Rav Mike has to say about the 17th of Tammuz. And so I would open it up by clicking on it, and now I am in the sheet. And of course, as I'm reading his sheet, I can go into anything. And this is why it's so wonderful to be doing it on the site and not on paper, because I can be reading this and I could say, you know, this is great, but I'd like to see what the commentaries have to say about it. And now on the right-hand side, I'm in the text itself, and I can click on it, and now I can have the commentaries, and I can just keep going and keep going. And again, here maybe I didn't know who this was, so I can click on, I want to show you a table of contents where there is an author. So I'm going to close these. These X's close everything. Sometimes it gets too much, so I need to close some. So here is, this is the Bartanura. He's a Torah commentator, and but now I have what his name is. I'll make this bigger so that we can all see it. So now I might have wondered what's his name. It's going to tell me about him. I can read about him. I can click on his name, and now I see when he lived, where he lived, a little biography of him. I have links to Wikipedia and Jewish Encyclopedia if I'd like to learn more. And I have a listing of all of the works on our site that he wrote. And I could go, well, you can see he was busy and he wrote a lot, and we have it, which is wonderful. And it also gives me a map. It shows me where Bartanura lived. And so, so this is also great information on our on the table of contents of each work. So, okay, I'm going to stop again for questions because that was a lot. Again, just showing you how you can discover new texts that you might not have seen before.
Okay, we have two questions. First one is from Mayan and Rick Sands, and they are asking about topics pages, and you know, in addition to like 17th of Tammuz, can you explore like broader topics like forgiveness or?
Sure, here, let's do it.
Gratitude. Yeah.
Forgiveness, there it is. So it's a topics page, and I'm going to click on it. And I'm glad that you asked that because I had forgotten to show you what's on the right. So here we have our sources about forgiveness, and we're going to have sheets about forgiveness, and then we have related topics. So while I'm talking about forgiveness, well, maybe I wanted to talk about Yom Kippur, or maybe I wanted to talk about Vidui or something else, and I could go, and all these related, they have their own topics page. So so that would that would take me to another topics page. So yes, we have like 5,000 topic pages. So so you'll find a lot of a lot of good stuff in the topics pages.
And another question about translations from Gary. He's curious to know why we don't have English translation for Sidurim.
So the whole question about why we don't have translations for certain things is a great question. We are very, very careful about respecting copyrights. So the Hebrew texts, Rambam does not hold the copyright anymore on his work. So it's much easier to get access to the Hebrew texts of ancient texts, but the person who translated whatever text it is still might have that, might have the copyright to that. So we can't put it up. So we are working on getting better Siddur translations. If people want to add themselves, if they would like to do their own translation and share it. Like the other day, actually, we got an email from somebody who said, this was like so fantastic. He said that for his congregation, he had translated a bunch of keynote for Tisha B'Av, and he wanted to donate them to us. And so we said, great, if he adds it himself, then he has credit for it because because you have to be logged in to do that. And he went ahead and he translated. So originally we only had like 2 or 3 keynote translated, and I haven't looked at it lately, but he added several more. And so this year for Tisha B'Av, we will have more translations. So we are working on it. We know that we want to get, but Sidurim are hard because people sell Sidurim and they don't want to necessarily just give us their translation. So we don't own the translations. We do things to encourage people to allow it to be on our site. We do have on your source sheet, again, I'll show you. We have a Google form where people can, I put it on here somewhere. Well, it is on here. We put a Google form where you can request texts and translations. Now, we can't always get the texts that, well, believe me, it's here. I'm not going to spend time looking for it because it's never there when you're looking for it, but it is. We would love to know what you're interested in. It doesn't mean that we can get it because of copyrights, but the more people that we know want something, we might, if it's a translation, we might be able to see if we can pay a translator to translate. We might be able to see if we can encourage somebody to let us use their translation. So please let us know what would be helpful to you, what you're interested in, whether it's a text itself or a translation.
Can I have two more questions?
Yep, sure.
So continuing with the translation conversation, is copyright the main reason why we specifically are lacking in Reform, Conservative, and Reconstructionist Sidurim? And then also, is there a way that we vet or show, do quality assurance for user-submitted translations?
So good questions. So yes, there was recently a conversation on social media about that we are missing certain newer texts and texts from certain movements. And we would encourage you, if you are just as a regular person or if you're a rabbi, to talk to the people who own those translations to see if there's something that they can do to share them on Sefaria. We know that there are a lot of people who want them. We are non-denominational. It's not that it's not there because we don't want to put it there. We definitely do. We get comments from all different parts of the spectrum of people who don't like certain things. We aren't favoring one over the other. It's all a matter of access to it. And we would very, very much like to offer the fullest Jewish library that we can offer to people. I forgot what the second question was.
The second one was, how do we vet
okay.
user submitted?
Yeah, so 2 ways is we do keep an eye on it, but if you see something that, well, first of all, any user can edit anybody else's the community translations, not the ones that, you can't go in and edit the JPS translation. But if you do see something that's a mistake in, and we do have it, less and less because people do write us, but people see typos and all those things. If you write us at, you can write us at hello@Sefaria or corrections@Sefaria, and just give as much information as you can. We correct those very, very quickly. But if it's a community, a Sefaria community translation, that is open for any registered user. So if you see something that you think is not translated correctly there, you can edit it yourself. And if you look in the FAQs, in the FAQ group, there's directions. And if you can't find that, then write us at hello, and we'll give you directions for how to do that. Any of our other ones, the other ones are locked, so it's not like you won't change it, you know, by mistake. But if you do see something that, and I want to say that our Tanakh text in Hebrew is according to the Leningrad Codex, and there are some differences with other versions of Tanakh. And so I forgot which book it's in, might be Jeremiah. There's like one verse that's numbered differently, and people write us about that, and that's not a mistake. It's just that's what we're using until we get something different. So, but even if you think that there's a mistake, you can write us. Unless it's a Sefaria community translation, then you'll do it yourself. But we do keep an eye on things. If you think there's something that shouldn't be there, please let us know, and we'll look into it. We might not agree with you, but better that you should mention it, and we'll certainly take it all very seriously. Okay, I do want to show you a couple more things. So I want to show you our reference books, and this has not been shown on other webinars. So I think that this is, although people have asked, but we haven't had time, so we said you guys get to have this. So I'm going to open up a text here. I just opened. And I want a word translated. So when I have the resource panel open on the side, I can double click on any word, and there's my dictionary on the side. We have a Tanakh dictionary that it tells you where it's coming from. This is the online Tanakh dictionary. It also, there's a search bar I can type there, and I have my Hebrew keyboard that I can do it there. We also, for other books, we also have the Jastrow and the Klein dictionaries. And I'm going to show you how those work. First of all, you can get them from the library page under reference. So if I click on reference, we have the Jastrow and the Klein, not the other one, that's the online one. That's just kind of running in the background. If I click on the Jastrow, this just opens up to where I was before. If I click on the table of contents, I can pick any letter that I would like, and I can scroll through. I can type in the dictionary in English on the side. I have my Hebrew keyboard. So that is one way, and the same thing works for the Klein dictionary. But I can also use it if I'm in the text. So I'm going to open up the Talmud. I'm just going to click anywhere. I'm going to put it in Hebrew. I'm going to click to open the resource panel, and I'm going to double click somewhere. Let's try this. I'm going to double click on a word. Oh, and kind of knew that was going to happen. Let me try. There we go. Okay, I double clicked on a word, and on the side I have the definition, and real small it says Jastrow dictionary. So this is from the Jastrow, and it's going to give me the definition. So I can do that for the Jastrow and for the Klein, and in the Tanakh, you just double click and it will open up on the side. Sometimes it will also be in more than one dictionary, and then they would both be put here. For those of you who are familiar with the Jastrow jackpot, which is where you get these verses, that happens too. I'm kind of running out of time, so I'm not going to show it to you, but believe me, if you get lucky, you will find it, and that's really nice. I want to point out a couple more things on the screen. Sometimes people ask about updates. How do you know when we've added something? And lucky for me, we actually, I can actually show you on my screen. All day I've been trying to remember not to click on it so that I could show you. So if you look on the top right, this is my icon for this is our Sefaria education page. You might have a photograph of yourself, or you might have your initials here. This is your profile page. To the left of it, we see in a red circle with the number 4. That means that there are 4 new texts or 4 updates to my account since the last time I clicked on it. Once I click on it, it's gonna go gray and have a 0. So that's why I saved it all day so that I could do it. I have no idea what's there because once I clicked on it, it would be gone. So here we go. Let's see. Oh, wonderful. Here are some new texts. Since 6 hours ago, this was added. And it tells me what the text is. There's the link to it. I could go directly to it. It tells me a little bit about it. Torah riddles and quizzes. Oh, that's wonderful. And then here's the Rashba and Menachot, the Ritva and Shvuot. And then this one, which I didn't know. I mean, at this point, we often get to texts that many of us don't know about because all the big ones were already there. And here you can see what it looks like when at the top right again, there it's gray with a 0. But you always can go to this notifications page as well. From the library page, I can scroll down and I can go all the way down to the bottom and it says new editions, and that will take me to it as well. So that's a great way to know what's new, to keep up with things, and people enjoy that a lot. I had mentioned about authors. You can find out about them from the author page. You also here, you can click on authors, and it's going to give me a list of all of our authors, which there are tons and tons of them. And if I click on any of their names, it's going to take me to their author page. And again, I've shown you this a couple times. So that's also because if you are really an explorer, you're going to find things that you've never heard of and people you've never heard of, and we want you to be able to know who they are. So I talked about requesting texts, making making an account is a nice thing. You don't have to. You have access to most everything that I showed you without making an account, but if you do, you can make source sheets, you can save texts, you can see your history, all kinds of nice things. Also, right now, you can also follow us on social media, and we're involved in a summer reading challenge for the whole Sefaria community. We're trying to read collectively 2 million minutes of people who are logged into the website. So if you log into the website and you do any reading on the text, you're helping us all reach our goal. We also, if you're on social media, we also periodically are sending out reading lists. We just sent out a reading list for the 3 weeks with some suggestions of texts that we start with the basic ones and then something that maybe you didn't know about that you might be interested. And speaking of things you didn't know about, I really wanted to show you some texts that you might not have known. And somebody who asked about English only text, I have a really special text I want to show you. I don't think that many people know about it. I discovered it when they added it as a new text, and then I just couldn't stop reading it because it was so wonderful. It's in the responsa category. Responsa are questions of Jewish law that are written back and forth. So here are some of our traditional ones. And here you will see in black, collected responsa in wartime. And we have 2 of them, also collected responsa to chaplains. And these are in English because I'll show you from the table of contents what it is. They are responsa written to U.S. Armed Forces chaplains during World War II by the Committee of Army and Navy Religious Activities. So a chaplain in the Army, in the American Army, has to serve everybody regardless of what religion they are. So sometimes they would get a question, a non-Jewish chaplain would have a question from a Jewish serviceman and they would need to have it answered. And what's in the introduction, it tells you all about it. It was a committee of 3 rabbis, an Orthodox, conservative, and Reform rabbi, and they wrote responsa having to do with all kinds of issues that happen in wartime during World War II. It is fascinating. So I encourage you to look at that. That is an English-only text. In the liturgy category, I had mentioned these Pesach Hagaddah Commentaries, which are linked to the Hagaddah. There's a rabbi whose name is Rabbi Mark Greenspan, and he took it upon himself every year for his, before Pesach, for his siyum, for the fast for the firstborn, to have translated a new Pesach Hagaddah commentary. And he has made these all available on Sefaria. So they are super interesting, and that's a really nice thing. I want to also show you, two more things. So I'm going to talk fast. In Tanakh, we have, if you're familiar with Nechama Leibowitz, who was the founder of the source sheet, we have a collection of her Gilionot, her original source sheets. And if you look down in the commentary section, it says Nechama Leibowitz. And we have hundreds of her Gilionot. They are not all translated in English, but we have one for every parsha. We hired a translator to translate one for every parsha. So if you click on the English ones, these actually are our collection of source sheets. And I can, oh, you know what? I think that's for the next, okay, sorry. So I can click on any of these and you will see that it's an English translation of it. And the last thing that I want to show you of the lesser known texts in the philosophy section here, we also have, I'm going to show you an English only text. What's wonderful is that you have hundreds of years of rabbis to learn from. We have Kol Dodi Dofek, that is Rabbi Soloveitchik from the 1900s, that's in English only. We have Maimonides' Guide for the Perplexed, that's the 1100s. And we have 19 letters by Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, and that's in the 1800s. So we have a really wonderful, complete library, which we very much hope that you will use. Ask questions. I'm going to stop the share so I can see all of you again. I believe there's a webinar that's going on right after, so I might have to cut the questions short. But if someone has one that doesn't get answered, please send it to hello@sefaria.org, and I will return your question. I'll do it tomorrow. Hannah, is there anything urgent we need to do right now?
A quick question from Madeline Cohen. She asked if I wanted to look up a book that was recently in editions but now gone, maybe from the from the updates page. How do I find that? Is there a history?
Oh, it's never gone. You just keep scrolling down.
Okay.
It's not gone. Oh, and also because we have Hannah here, I would be remiss to not mention that Sefaria is a nonprofit, and all of these wonderful resources are available to you free of charge, but we do appreciate people who donate to help provide it for everybody. And if you have any questions about any of that, that's also on the sheet. And more specifically, you can email Hannah@sefaria.org, and she would be happy to help you with any of that. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Yeah, Hannah, did you have anything else?
Oh, no, I was just going to say thank you for saying that. If you have any questions, you can email me.
So thank you all very, very much. And look out for additional webinars and materials. Follow us on social media. Email us with anything. Thank you. And I'm going to say goodnight. I'm in Jerusalem.